the basic challenges what we have faced during this period and the last 2 months types are primarily with regards to the products, basically the basic products offered by the bank. One is the asset side and there is a liability side. Assets is basically the decline in the credit demand. The biggest issue what we faced is there is hardly any new offtake of credit, hardly any new application for credit which has actually come, which is basically, it's actually triggered by a fall in the business activity and the non-essential spends. And another important challenge we faced is on the deposit side also. The overall the deposits have been very low and the investments growth also have actually come down. So this is actually kind of fueled by the continued rate reduction also and increasing volatility in the market. So when RBI and the government has been reducing the rates in the market, banks are also forced to reduce the rates in the market, because of which the deposit rates have fallen down steeply. So with the lower deposit rates, not much fixed deposits were coming into the branch. And then another important challenge which we faced is that the sales and servicing in the branches. So the earlier, as you are aware, there is a lot of sales activity that was happening in the branches. Now with very limited and almost nil customer walk-ins, there is hardly any branch-driven sales that was happening. So that is one big issue. And also the limited serviceability because of constrained, we are basically constrained by the reduced staff and operational timings. So initially we were told to operate for half a day, then gradually it has been increased to up to 4 o'clock, and then subsequently now we are operating almost for a full day. But the problem is serviceability of operations at the branch level, having proper staff, full-fledged staff. These are the challenges, kind of basic challenges which we faced. And then there is another important challenge of restriction operations. That is basically the movement of restrictions and lack of clarity on banking correspondence as national sales service, especially in the rural areas. We had banking correspondents, so they were not able to move around freely, which is again actually caused several disruptions in service. And one of the very few positive sides of COVID lockdown is this, that is, it's given an opportunity kind of to improve the digitization efforts. In fact, recently I was reading a McKinsey report wherein the digitization efforts in banking across the globe apparently have taken a leap by about 5 years, okay, in a span of 8 weeks. You can understand. So basically we are forced to adopt this, nothing much. Honestly speaking, had you left it to the banks or had you left it to people, had you left it to the current systems, whatever I have taken 5 years has actually happened in a span of about 8 weeks, which is considered in the current scenario considered very good. It's actually, I would rather put it this way. Initially, we were also thinking that liquidity management is going to be a big problem in terms of the overall arranging of liquidity for the loans and stuff like that. But today, the situation is opposite. The banks are kind of having excess liquidity. There are a lot of liquidity. Every bank is sitting on plenty of funds, including us, and then there is hardly any takers in the market. Or rather, there may be takers, but I don't have confidence to lend in the market. Issue is that. So we are not able to kind of find good people out there or good businesses out there or good industries out there to go aggressively and lend in the market. So that's a challenge actually. Okay. And then the one more thing which I've seen is the recovery and the thriving phase. So basically what we have to, or rather we have already been doing is we are basically recalibrating the risk assessment scenarios for each kind of for each industry, for each sector, for each location. And today now we are calling something called hotspots and then containment zones across the country. So these are kind of going to be an area of important risk factorization going forward. So an area with larger amount of containment zones or higher amount of in hotspot concentrations and stuff like that probably will not see much of credit growth happening immediately. It will probably take a longer time in picking up than other areas where the impact has been lesser. So these are all the new processes. So wherein basically now as a bank, I cannot keep on engaging in sending people outside to verify addresses. So what happens? We'll appoint something called a field investigation agencies. So these field investigation agencies are kind of local people who will take these such requests from various banks. They are basically act as an aggregator. They'll be working for RBL Bank or Kotak Mahindra Bank or ICICI Bank or Axis Bank or State Bank of India or PNB, whatever bank. And then they'll be doing all such kind of customer requests and then give a day end or a weekend report to the bank. even whatever new digitization efforts that are being brought in terms of even the corporate banking space also, wherein we are actually giving a window to the customer to load in documents to the bank so that all banking transactions of the customers can happen at the bank's end without the documents physically traveling to the bank. Already Aadhaar enabled, KYC is already being taken by several banks, and then digital onboarding is already happening. Only thing is, going forward, maybe artificial intelligence and facial recognition technologies could actually help enhance the veracity of the customer in terms of the customer data validation, or the maybe facial recognition technologies and all will come into place. You must be aware, RBI has actually offered a 1 quarter moratorium on interest payments on loans. Okay, all types of corporate loans and even retail loans. So basically, whatever is the installment the customer is supposed to pay, be it the principal installment or the interest repayment that is to be paid in the 1 quarter, that is in the period of March, April, and May, they've offered in moratorium, saying that this during these 3 months, the customer does not need to pay anything. So, as per the guidelines of Reserve Bank of India, banks said that they will be charging interest on interest. Whereas there has been a petition that has been filed in the Supreme Court saying that banks should not be charging interest on interest. Whereas banks are actually paying interest on interest by way of compounding interest on fixed deposits. So that's the issue. So, for example, if banks pay compound interest, but while charging, if they are not charging compound interest, it will affect the bank's profitability. So we were thinking that car loans also, people will not buy new cars and all. But it has been actually, surprisingly, it has been the opposite. People are actually buying cars, primarily because there is no public transport available and people want to maintain social distance. Artificial intelligence and machine learning based, alternate data based, some risk models are coming in. So which are at the theoretically kind of at a testing level, I would say. And banks are kind of going to use them to augment their risk management capabilities. So basically, where the players are considering deploying AI-enabled social media cluster analytics for the early identification of virus outbreak hotspots based on first-hand social media posts and stuff like that. But then at this stage, I would say these are all only theoretical level. Practically, it will take its own time. The certain severely impacted sectors are basically going to be reviewed with concern. For example, tourism, hospitality, non-food retail, non-food wholesale, logistics, entertainment, gems and jewelry. These are all the industries which we have identified as severely impacted, very heavily impacted, wherein the recovery is going to be very long drawn and very painful. So most of the textile mills and the yarn manufacturing units, they are facing this problem of sales. For them right now, after the pandemic, after the lockdown has been lifted, things are all fine. But the problem is their godowns are full. They're not able to dispatch because at the front end, nobody is buying. Earlier, in good times, bank credit growth has seen up to 9% or even maximum of 9% types in the up to 2014. But in the current year, the way it appears to be, it will not be more than 2 to 3%. And then if the lockdown extends even further, probably it may even become nil. Credit growth will overall be nil. There is something called asset reconstruction companies, which you must have heard. A very effective and I would say, a recovery and collection-oriented bank will say, I want to recover this money to the maximum extent, because if I give to ARC, I'll have to sell it at 50% loss. But if I recover, I'll at least recover at 40% loss. Basically, the CRR requirements for banks have actually kind of reduced from 4% to 3%, which you have read in the market, in the newspapers. So CRR is something called a cash reserve ratio, which banks are supposed to maintain with the Reserve Bank of India. So basically, earlier it used to be 4% of the total deposits a bank hold. We are mandatorily supposed to hold it with the Reserve Bank of India. So recently, Reserve Bank of India has reduced that to 3%. So that 1% change has actually injected a fresh liquidity of 1.3 lakh crores in the system. The penultimate question is, how will banks adopt the blockchain technology in this digital transformation era? Yeah, see, blockchain several fintechs are actually working on this area also. So I would rather say blockchain technology is still in the nascent stage in Indian banking. Okay, so but definitely there is a lot of work that is going on happening. In fact, I was actually part of one particular project when I was in Kotak Mahindra Bank, wherein we were actually working on a blockchain technology. This thing. There are various there are things like account aggregators, and then e-invoicing, where e-invoicing is one area wherein we expect blockchain to kind of do a good, very significant inroads into banking. So I'll just explain that in a few words. So basically what happens is, say, I'll just take an example. Say, for example, a company like Hero Honda is there. Okay, so Hero Honda is manufacturing say motorcycles. Okay, and then Hero Honda is selling those motorcycles in bulk to its dealers in all your places. For example, Hyderabad, Delhi, Bombay, even small little places have Hero Honda dealers. So, and Hero Honda dealers will buy them. For example, Hero Honda, assume, I'm not sure how many they manufacture. Assume they'll manufacture say 1 lakh bikes a month. Okay. They sell, for example, 1,000 bikes to one dealer in Hyderabad, 1,000 bikes to another dealer in Delhi, 1,000 bikes to another dealer in Mumbai and all. And then from the dealer, it will again go to a customer, individual customer, like people like you and me who will buy the bike. Okay. So this e-invoicing, what happens is, for example, a customer is buying a bike, he is taking a loan. A retail level of a loan he is taking from a bank. And then the dealer who is actually selling the bike at the dealership level, he is also taking a MSME loan. He is a small and medium enterprise, he is a kind of a trader. He is also taking a loan. And then the manufacturer, Hero Honda, is also taking a loan for its manufacturing facilities. ICICI Bank has actually mastered this act. They've actually financed all three levels. So it's the same bank, they're the same bike, they're financing thrice rather. So the same entire chain of events, entire chain of movement, for example, Hero Honda invoicing its dealers, the dealer selling and invoicing them to the customer, all three levels of movement of the vehicle or the goods are being financed by the same bank. So the bank's penetration level will improve. So for example, a bank which is primarily working in the corporate space will now have a methodology to come and start servicing the MSME customers also. And a bank which is primarily focused on MSME space will also have an opportunity to get into the retail space also. It is not guaranteed or mandatory that some other bank should come in, but it will improve the bandwidth of the banks. This particular blockchain technology will actually reduce in terms of the number of frauds that are happening in the system. So in terms of fraud prevention, this is a good tool. And then banks also have to learn a lot in terms of blockchain technology and all. In theory, yes, honestly speaking, even my knowledge is also very limited because they're still not yet come into work. But yes, overall technology, there is no way out. We'll have to kind of evolve and then adapt. Are financial institutions willing to lend MSMEs? What are your expectations of default in such loans, if any? Yeah, earlier I've actually addressed this question partially by saying the sectors which banks will probably look at positively and then negatively. There are certain sectors which are good and there are certain sectors which are not so great at this current scenario. The way the outlook is, however, the outlook is subject to change anyways because no outlook is permanent. But then yes, MSMEs overall, see, there is because of the given current subdued market scenario, definitely yes, there will be a challenge in terms of lending aggressively. But then as the situation evolves, as the situation improves, gradually even credit markets also will get opened up, and then probably we'll see some movement there. Only thing is basically customization will happen. For example, as I was telling you, financing dealers of one large corporate, wherein we are sure of this particular product's offtake in the market is good. For example, if I see the offtake of, say, for example, Samsung refrigerators is good, I'll be confident of financing a Samsung dealer. There are certain new developments, things like, say, for example, remote asset evaluation and modeling kind of wherein people are actually kind of doing an asset maintenance activity and even asset verification process. Earlier, valuers used to visit a physical property physically. Nowadays, they are doing it virtually. They are ready to do it virtually. And recently, we have successfully completed one virtual valuation also in Hyderabad only. So that new models are evolving. So these are all the various things which we can see. And then these are several new processes are expected to save time and cost for the banks and are thus expected to continue even in the post-pandemic era.
You mentioned a point about stock market dilemma, in which portfolio managers invest in banking stocks which are already doing better in the market, and which makes their price surge. So how are banks dealing with this problem, considering that all the portfolio managers are risk averse now?
True. See, honestly speaking, banks individually, theoretically also, or rather practically also, banks are not supposed to engage in price manipulation of their stock, or rather even price speculation of their stock. Okay. So it is for the portfolio managers or the people, the stockbrokers and the investors to decide upon the price. It's a price discovery mechanism is what we follow. And then ultimately confidence in a particular bank in the market will be the main driver for the stock price. As you've seen, recently there is a lot of price beating of Yes Bank for various reasons. And because of Yes Bank falling, several small banks, IndusInd Bank, Lakshmi Vilas Bank, Karur Vysya Bank, so many banks, RBL Bank, R Bank also, most of these banks, one small bank has fallen. So everybody started bracketing all the small banks in the Yes Bank mode. Okay, and then most of the retail investors exited the market, or rather kind of disposed of their stock. So the floating stock in these particular scripts and counters has actually come down significantly. So this particular thing will evolve over a period of time only when the market's confidence in these particular stocks will improve.